This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to week 2 of Effective Copywriting. This is the week where we get started with copywriting for our nonprofit organizations. We're going to do some testimonial ads, and we're going to do some concepting and then comping up some actual ads. But first, I want to talk a little bit about what a testimonial ad is. Remember, you're going to create testimonial ads for the week 2 mastery assignment, and we're going to revise them in week 3. But for this week, you need to understand what a testimonial ad is. So with a testimonial ad, you have a spokesperson, someone who speaks for your organization, or like I say, they testify for your organization. So someone who you can really connect to the organization, someone that's honest and trustworthy, because when you're using a testimonial, you have to believe the person and what they're saying. So you want your person to be someone who is clearly tied to the organization. So once you decide who you're going to use to anchor your testimonial, then you can decide on the humor. If you want to use humor, I showed some examples last week with the dog ad on how you can use humor or other types of personification. You're going to be using, there's 9 different types of testimonials that George Felton covers in Advertising Concept and Copy. Here's some examples. An extreme user or a frequent user is someone who has maybe donated to the nonprofit organization year after year, or maybe it's someone who's used the services of your nonprofit and can speak to how wonderful the nonprofit is because they were able to get help from them. Experts are someone who's related to your nonprofit organization. So for example, if we think about an animal charity, an expert would be a veterinarian that could speak on behalf of your animal charity. Company bigwigs are always trustworthy, especially with nonprofits, because they usually do, they don't, but they're dedicating their life to this organization. So getting the president of the nonprofit or the director of their board of trustees is a great person to use for your testimonial. Celebrities, we've all seen celebrities endorse products everywhere, because we don't own the right to their brand. We have to be careful that you're not using, even if you find a free image of a celebrity, it doesn't mean you own the right to their brand. So let's try not to use celebrities, but if you want to comp something up with a celebrity, you need to do it in such a way that you're explaining who the celebrity is by not actually using them, because it's with you putting ads on your website for your Behance and maybe your thesis review, you're basically copyright infringing if you're using someone's brand without permission. So here's an example of an ad from the Food Bank for New York City with a frequent user. This is someone who could use the services of the nonprofit organization. So you can hear his voice and tone clearly. The spokesperson is basically speaking for the organization, so the voice and tone has to be right. So here he says, you see that I'm hungry, I see you see me, I see you pretend not to see me. So help end hunger in New York City by going to this website. So that's one example. And then another type of ad that uses a young person tells a story. I think the body copy here is really important. The headline and subhead work together. Don't worry about me, I don't need your help. And then he tells his story about how he's a 9-year-old and he doesn't need anybody's help because he found a sandwich yesterday and it was barely touched and he'll be fine. Don't worry about it, I can find food on my own. But you could help feed other people, though, through Food Bank for New York City. So that's a way to create a testimonial, is by telling that person's story in their voice and tone through that narrative. Here's an example of personification. So this is for Doctors of the World, and the voice and tone of the stethoscope of Dr. John Wright is heard because says it's used to listen to Ebola patients in West Africa, earthquake victims in Nepal, and refugees in Greece. So when the world cries out, we are listening. So the stethoscope is not the person but the thing. So it's using personification to give voice to that thing. Here's an example of an ad that uses a frequent user, and this ad is calling for volunteers. So usually the end result of any nonprofit campaign is to raise money or raise awareness, but sometimes they just need volunteers. So you can do an ad campaign about getting volunteers to help with the nonprofit organization. So here you see the girl, Suzanne, she's running with her dog that she got from Red Rover, and how Red Rover helped her when she was in need. So she runs every day and she volunteers every day. So that's a testimonial ad from the point of view of someone who's used the services of Red Rover. Here's another example from that same campaign. Now we're hearing from the dog, so not the person but the thing. But you can hear, if dogs could talk, they'd say help, stop, no. And it talks about, the ad talks about how you can stop domestic violence on pets and how Red Rover can help. So the call to action is really important. With every ad, you're going to have to write a headline, body copy that sells the organization, and that call to action where you can direct your reader to go to get help or to give money or to volunteer for the organization. So having that URL in there is really important. So those are some examples of testimonial ads. But before you can do your testimonial ad, we have to think about your target audience. You need to know who you're writing to and who you're communicating with in order to really reach them. So a persona is a fabricated archetype of a user that's used to represent an entire group. So say you are using a target audience of adults ages 25 to 54, you could create a fabricated persona that's maybe in the lower range. Maybe it's a female age 31. And then maybe it's a male adult at the higher end, maybe say age 50. So you have that whole demographic kind of represented through your fabricated personas. These personas represent the needs that are developed through your research. So they guide your design process, because developing these personas puts a face on your target audience. So once you understand who you're writing to, you're speaking right to these people. So we're going to learn how to develop our target audience by developing personas, because personas help you understand the user, so you can direct your target message directly at them using the correct voice and tone. So the more you know about your target audience, the easier it's going to be to write copy they will respond to. And that's the most important part of an advertisement, is that it gets the audience to do something. Call a phone number, go to the website, make a donation, come to an event, support us. So you want to make sure your target audience is not too broad. This is really, really specific. You want to make sure it's not too broad, because if you say all people ages 2 to 95 want to save the puppies, yes, that's probably true, but you can't do one campaign that addresses 2-year-olds in the same way that a campaign would address an 80-year-old. So you have to narrow down your focus. So I want you to do a demographic that's not too broad. So it could be, if you're using a younger demographic, maybe it's 18-year-olds to 30-year-olds, or maybe it's that 25 to 54, or maybe it's an older adult audience, 35 to 75. Think about who's going to support your organization that's going to help them raise money, raise awareness, or get volunteers to come out to an event. So remember, every piece of advertising is meant to get your target audience to respond, to get them to do something. You're probably raising money for your nonprofit. So the nonprofit is asking you to create this magazine print ad campaign so that they can raise money. So you have to make sure the voice and tone are directed at that target audience. So this is where your personas come in, because your personas are going to help you understand how to address this idea of raising money, getting the people to raise awareness, to use the services of the nonprofit, because you really understand who these people are. So let's look at a specific target audience profile. So here's Stephanie. This was for one of the environmental organizations. She's unmarried with a child. She has 2 golden retrievers. She even gives them names. The specifics here are really important. The more specific you can be about what you're doing in this assignment with each and every piece that you fill out is going to make the person more real. So Stephanie is got her 2 golden retrievers named Max and Chloe. She loves being in the outdoors. She likes hiking, camping, and kayaking specifically. She is a Pinterest user, and she follows environmental causes on Twitter. Those are all very specific. She's a book reader, but she doesn't just read books. She reads specific types of books. She reads memoir and poetry. That says something specific about who she is. So when you're working on your personas, you want to make sure you're digging really down deep into these details. So part of the assignment has you filling out those demographic items, but then you're going to write a story about them. So here's Stephanie's story about her and her boyfriend who adore their child. They love the outdoors and they go on a lot of camping trips together. They've gone to 3 different states. They like riding quads and dirt bikes, looking for crafting projects on Pinterest. So everything in blue here is a detail. It's a specific detail that reveals more about this person. She loves to cook ethnic cuisines and she likes to bake pies. She was into softball. She was a cheerleader. She had to find, after a freak accident, she had to figure out other activities that she could do outside that wouldn't hurt her knees. So it's really important that you dig down deep into these specifics. So let's go ahead and look at the assignment. Oh, wrong one. That's the mastery project. Let me go back to, let's go look at personas. So the project for this week for you that's due Sunday is the first thing you're going to work on is your target audience profiles. You're going to use the template down here at the bottom, the Pages document. Pages is the free program that comes with your Mac. So if you want to, recreate it some other way, that's fine. But Pages, just download the app from the App Store and fill out the document the way it is laid out. And what you're going to do is do some research. I give you all these different resources to use for free images because you want to make sure that the people are represented with a clear photograph. So please use the royalty-free images that are listed here and use the template. So what you're going to do is you're going to fill out this template. I think I have an example of one. Let me see if I can find it really quickly. Oh, here's a good one. Get this one to open. All right. So here's what the template looks like, and this is what you're going to be filling out. So fill out all the target attributes and be specific. What I'm showing here in the yellow are those specifics. And you're going to give your person a name. You're going to give us a geographic location of where they live. And you're going to fill out the target demographics, their age, gender, education level. Remember, be specific. Don't just say she lives in Texas. Say she lives in Dallas, Texas. She's got all these specifics here. So when you tell your story, you're going to write a little story about them in 200 to 250 words that really walks us through a day in the life of this person. Remember, personas are meant to grab your attention so that you understand who your audience is. You can think about Stephanie in the previous example, or this one's Janet. You can see her picture. You understand who she is from all the details that are in her story. Okay, so that's the first thing you're going to do for your assignment, because personas help you in the design process by keeping you from using what we call self-referential design. You're crafting a message to a specific target audience, and the voice and tone needs to be directed to them, and the design elements need to be directed to them. Just because you like pink doesn't mean your target audience likes pink. So understanding who your target audience is through the development of these personas will help you avoid self-referential design. Okay? All right. So now let's talk a little bit about sketching our concepts. So I want to go over to the Mastery Project real quick. So this week what we're doing is we're starting with the concepting of the ads. So we're going to read, it's really important that you read chapter 19, The Power of Personality, about testimonials in your advertising concept and copy textbook, and watch the tutorials that we have listed here. That's why it was open last week. You're going to create 6 concepts in the form of testimonial ad, and each concept must represent a distinctly different approach. So there's 9 different types of testimonial ads listed in Chapter 19. You must take 6 of those 9 and come up with ideas for ads based on those 6 different types of testimonials. Okay, you can use this to design your ads later for your comps. So let's talk a little bit about sketching. So you want to think about what the concept is. So say you're doing an environmental cause and you think someone that would be a really good target member of your target audience is Stephanie, the avid backpacker, and she's 28 years old and she supports Nature Conservancy and maybe she supports Sierra Club, but you want her to also support your organization, so you understand who she is. So you want to develop a concept that will hook the viewer. So as a frequent user of other nonprofit organizations in the same kind of category, you can think about what she really likes. What would people who appreciate the outdoors, how would you construct a message that would speak directly to them that they would want to support your nonprofit organization? So you're thinking about what your nonprofit organization is about. You do that by understanding their mission statement, which is usually on their about page of their website. And then you're going to create these 6 different concepts based on the 9 different types of testimonials. I talked a little bit about them before. The frequent user, the extreme user, not the person but the thing, maybe a historical figure, maybe a celebrity or an expert or a company bigwig. So pick 6 out of those 9 and develop your concepts. Your sketches should be detailed enough that it shows what the concept is, what the image is going to kind of look like. You can sketch that out. I don't sketch the best. I can't draw freehand real well, but I can develop my sketches enough that a client would understand my concepting from it. You want to write some copy, so a headline and draft some body copy. Then under each sketch, what you're going to do, let's go back to the assignment instructions, is you're going to take these 6 sketches and create, you're going to put them in a Word document. Let's skip down here. And under each sketch, you're going to write a rationale describing the concept. So here's where I kind of gave everybody a hint in the feedback to the discussion board this week. I said use the, I don't know what happened there. Use your textbook to define the meaning of something. So Felton gives a description of each of these 9 different types of testimonials. So if you are using an extreme user, in your rationale, quote directly from Felton defining what an extreme user is, then discuss how your concept works based on that type of testimonial. So you're going to do 6 sketches. Then what you're going to do from your 6 sketches, you're going to take your 3 strongest ones and develop those into comps using InDesign. So if you think about how you would work with a client, you would develop your concepts, then you would comp up the ads so that the client could see what they're going to look like. And then next week, what we're going to do is make changes to the comps and tighten them up and create this cohesively branded campaign that the client's going to say, absolutely, you have the job, help me raise money, let's go. So for this assignment, though, you're not doing the final comp, but you want to have it close enough so the client can understand what the image is going to look like, what the typography is going to look like, what is the layout going to be, how's the hierarchy in the ad working, what's the voice and tone of the ad. These are all things we worked on in week 1, so you should understand how to apply that now as you're writing copy. So your comp should have the headline, the subhead if you want. It must have body copy. Remember, the body copy is where you sell the organization and get people to react to what they do so that they will respond to your call to action, which is 9 times out of 10 a web address, a URL. And that's what you're going to submit this week. So as you're sketching, you want to think about what makes a great concept. How does it communicate its message? Because everything goes back to how well your message is communicated to that target audience. And that's how you get them to react to your call to action. So think about the goal of the project. I mentioned that earlier. It's either raise money, raise awareness, or maybe you're doing an event or a volunteer project. So stay focused on what the ad is supposed to get from the consumer, from the target audience member. Then develop your message. What are you going to say and how are you going to say it? Again, you've done your personas project first, so you understand who you're talking to. So you know the target audience and you know how to define them. So to reach your customer or to reach someone to make a donation to a nonprofit, you need to touch on their emotions. So that's where your Settle and Alric 15 catalog of needs discussion board came into play last week. You want to make sure that you're coming up with these concepts, and if you struggle with getting some ideas, you've picked out the 6 types of testimonials, but you're not quite sure how you want to approach them, well, storytelling is a really good way to get started on a concept. If you look at the person that the type of testimonial that you're using as your spokesperson, maybe it's a historical figure. Tell us the story of that historical figure and the connection to that nonprofit organization. You know, maybe George Washington, if he had known that there was going to be trouble with the environment and climate change, he wouldn't have chopped down that cherry tree. You know, you've just developed concepts by looking at the story of these people that you're using as your spokesperson. You can do free association. So if you're doing an animal charity, just make a list of words associated with the animal charity. Go through their website and see what kind of words they're using to spring up some ideas in your head. Then you want to make sure, as you're honing your 6 sketches, that they're really going back to your client's product or your nonprofit organization and their mission statement. Remember, you're educating the reader of your magazine ad on what your organization is, who they are, what they do, and why they need the reader's help. So you want to make sure that your concept always has that clear messaging of, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is why we need your help. So if your ideas are a little, off kilter, just remember to come back to that idea of, this is what we do, this is why we do it, this is why we need your help. So some other types of idea generating exercises you can do is words and phrases. Like if you want to sketch out words and play with typography, sometimes that can lead to something. Maybe construct a scene by, maybe you want to lay out it like a comic book or something. Like you have this idea, storyboard it out. There's no wrong answer, but what we want to see in the concept are the sketches of the actual ads. How you come up with the concept is up to you. So the rough sketch is going to let the client know what the visual prototype is going to look like. They're, produced kind of quickly, so doesn't have to be perfectly hand drawn, but it's got to be neat enough that it's not just a bunch of squiggles on the paper with stick people. It's supposed to show the client the direction of your ad campaign that you are creating for them. So it's meant to communicate the idea. So once you have your 6 sketches done, you have to choose the 3 strongest ones that you want to comp up, that you want to show the client, like, this is what these ads are going to look like. So you want to think about which ones best communicate the idea. Maybe the historical figure ad that concept wasn't as strong as, say, the frequent user or the extreme user persona. Testifier. That spokesperson is going to be able to connect with your target audience. So what you want to make sure is that concept is strong. So as you're developing these sketches, think about the top 3 that you want to develop into comps, because with comps, we're now showing the client some detail. They're reading the copy that you're writing. They're examining that headline. They're reading the body copy and making sure that it really demonstrates who they are and what they do. We want to think about how it illustrates the concept so that they understand what the color scheme is going to look like, what the typography is going to look like, how the ad and the images on the page are going to flow. So Craig Smallish in the tutorial says there are 2 reasons to produce these comps. The first is as a visual tool for communicating our idea. Sometimes you have ideas that you just can't express without a visual in front of the client. So that's where the comp comes in. And the second is as an instructional resource, so that when the client signs off on the concept and you're going to finalize the ads, you can use the that comp as an instructional resource to finalize your comp for the publication and get it ready to go to the publication. For example, I had to pitch an idea for a cover of a magazine, so I sketched out the idea of what I wanted, then I comped it up, and then I used that comp once the client signed off on the photo shoot idea. I then got my people in and used my comp to set everybody up so that the layout would work. Okay, so this week you're going to finish up your tutorials and you're going to then work on the target audience profiles assignment. Once you understand your target audience, start working on your concepts and sketches. Remember, you're doing 6 different types of testimonials based on the list of 9 that are in the textbook in Chapter 19. Make sure you read Chapter 19 first. You're going to take those 6 sketches, write a strong rationale, using George Felton's words to describe each type of testimonial and describing how that concept is going to work in your own words. You know, make sure you're developing a strong argument. Your rationales are based in research, so understanding what Felton's talking about when it comes to a historical figure or an extreme user, that helps you build your argument in your rationale. Once you have your 6 sketches with your 6 rationales done, put them in a Microsoft Word document, and then develop your 3 strongest sketches into comps using InDesign. Make sure the copywriting is there, the logo is there, the image is there, the layout is the way you want it, so that the client is understanding right from the get-go what you're thinking about how these concepts are going to look in the final order. Nothing is due this week until Sunday, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't get started on it right away. You should have opened everything up already and gotten your workflow ready for this week, because there's tutorials you have to watch, there's 6 sketches you have to develop, there's a chapter you need to read, you need to develop your target audience profiles. So there's a lot of work to do before you actually start sketching, and then even more work before you start working on your comps. So the target audience profiles assignment and the Mastery Learning Project assignment with your 6 sketches and your 3 comps is due Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Okay? Remember, your comps need to have headline, subhead, body copy, and call to action. Don't forget that call to action. Remember, you're stressing to the reader, this is what the organization does, this is why we do it, this is why you should support us or help us or use our services. Okay? If you're working on this and you're watching the archive and you get stuck with something, reach out to me. I am here to help you. You know, if you don't understand how a historical figure works in a testimonial ad, just call me up on the phone during office hours, shoot me an email. There's plenty of examples in the textbook. That advertising concept and copy textbook is really, really good. He's got examples. He thoroughly explains things in, perfect, concise English. So he's really just trying to get you to understand these different types of advertising. So we're focusing our ad campaign on testimonial ads. And remember, the testimonial ad has a spokesperson. It's based on one of the 9 different types of spokespeople that Felton talks about in Chapter 19. Okay, so if you're struggling, you need some advice, you need some help, reach out to me. I'd rather have you ask a lot of questions than try to fake it until you make it. That can be very stressful. And the last thing I want is for you guys to be stressed out. I want you to have fun and be creative and create some really strong advertising for your nonprofit organizations. Okay, if you have any questions and you're watching this on the archive, please just reach out.